Yeah, very well. How's it going?
Awesome. It's going great. We are still in partial lockdown. How about there in London?
We're coming slowly out of it.
Okay. So people have resumed their work and how about school?
Most people are working from home. Actually, in the schools reopened 2 days ago.
Now it's going to be more risky. The children have to be extremely careful while attending school and meeting more people every day.
Yeah, lots of things like this.
Yes. So schools in India are not yet open. Everybody's schooling online, and a few people are switched to homeschooling as well. But India has adapted pretty well with the online learning, and we were quite amazed actually seeing technology play its role.
Yeah.
Hi Tom, Richa here.
Hi Richa, nice to meet you.
Yeah, same here. It's a pleasure to be with you at this great afternoon.
Welcome to the candid talk show of Sweet Memories High School with one of the youngest, most popular and empathetic poet of today, Tom Foolery. Namaste.
Namaste.
Way of greeting. Myself, Gina, and Ms. Richa are extremely excited to have a one-on-one conversation with you today. But before we begin, we were really curious to know the prefix that you added to your name. Your family call us probably Tom Foolery. So is there a story behind it?
There's a small story, I suppose. So
We thought so.
Yeah, because it's an unusual prefix.
Yeah, well, I like that, and I think that the story is this really. I suppose I've been performing under the name Tom Foolery for many years now because I'm really attracted to the idea of having a character, and it can be a character that shares your views, but when you step out onto a stage or onto the internet to perform, you can be this performer, and then you can save your real name for your private life, which I think that there's something beautiful about having a private life. And I think that these days a lot of people give away everything about themselves too freely, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, so I've been performing under the name Tom Foolery, and then when we decided to begin using social media and creating these pages and these channels, the name Tom Foolery was taken already by someone else. So my friend Alex said to me, "Would you like to have Tom Foolery official?" Because that's what lots of people do. They have Tom Foolery official or the real Tom Foolery or things like this. And to me that this sounded very inappropriate almost, because to start with there was nothing official about me. No one had heard of me. And so it felt foolish to claim to be official, or the real Tom Foolery, as if every other one must be a fake one except me. I feel like we live in a time where people are encouraged to let their egos expand. And I think there are dangers to this. So I decided that there was something more humorous and maybe more humble about having the prefix probably, because it's less assuming. It's more like it's probably Tom Foolery, and it felt friendlier. It felt friendlier to me. So that's the story behind that.
Wow, nice to know, because we didn't find this anywhere on the internet. Basically, Tom has been a poet and a filmmaker, I think at a very young age, and he has recently launched his YouTube platform in the middle of all the pandemic lockdown and a lot of chaos happening across the world. And I think thereafter, in a very short span of time, your poem, The Great Realization, it hit the heights of popularity, giving you millions of followers and making you a global star. So wasn't that thrilling? I mean, it's very exciting to me.
Yeah, it was incredibly exciting, and still is, really. I suppose obviously in one respect, it's really humbling to have that level of recognition for the work that you're doing. I think that there are lots of talented artists who are making exceptional work, who struggle to find that level of recognition, and so that was, I knew that was not something to be taken for granted. I knew that was something to be really, really grateful for. It was incredibly special. But the other thing, which I think was more important to me almost, is it suggested to me that the idea of the poem was something that was useful to many people, and the objective beforehand had been to try and find a hopeful message and to share it with people, and the response made me believe that we'd achieved that goal, that people had found.
Yes, and Tom, to add on to this, I had seen this video not once, not twice, but several times, and believe me, each time I see it gives me a different view, perspective, and a different meaning altogether. So every time I watch it, I learn something new. So it's really great.
My personal, I would like to share my personal interpretation of this poem too, because I'm not going to get a chance probably to have a conversation with you and express what we feel about this great realization, which has become so popular, and why is it so? Because I think it is very sensitively touched upon the swelling global issues of urbanization and. Which and it actually took the virus to settle us back to our roots, to connect with our own selves, and to reverse our role, our relation with nature, because we had almost encroached upon everything which nature had to give us, and nature needs its fair share of the earth too. And very beautifully in your poem, you have touched upon these in different ways of how families have started connecting back to their parents and grandparents, how new lives are springing up around seas and the natural surroundings where they are getting a chance actually to come to life, which mankind had taken over everything. So Tom, did you have the slightest instinct that fame was coming your way? I mean, we just got to know that you've been interviewed very recently by Philip Schofield and Holly Boy, and so many Hollywood stars have also praised your work. So were you prepared for all of this, or how did your family react to it?
No, I don't think you can be prepared. I don't think it's wise to ever expect that the consequences of your actions. It's like Bhagavad Gita. It's like you've got to think about the action and not about the
reaction.
Not to think about the result of the reaction. That's something that's outside of your control, and so what will be. When something like this happens, I think like anyone would, you spend a few days or moments or hours or being completely shocked and overwhelmed, and then you see it for what it truly is, which is an opportunity to to share your perspective with people, which is a really precious opportunity, and I think you have a strong feeling that it's not going to last forever. You know, it may last a very short amount of time, this attention. And so you know, I think you feel compelled to speak as honestly and as properly as you can.
Wow, I mean, I'm really humbled by your words, because it just shows, you know, the true nature of a person. And it's not about getting to fame, it's about creating good work of art. And that's the primary motive.
Correct. I agree to you. So Tom, tell me, when did you realize that you wanted to write or you wanted to be a poet? Was it a natural talent from the childhood, or there was some turning point in life which instigated you to become a poet or the writer? Because a few of your poems, which I have seen on the YouTube, A Tale of Two Mindsets, and Words, it's seriously
it's
awesome poem.
Thank you very
And
much.
a few more. They all have very deep, intense meaning to it. So what makes you feel and what makes you put your thoughts in such beautiful poems?
Well, I think that we all, as human beings, I think we really feel a strong desire to express ourselves, you know, and to express, you know, the way we feel, our emotions, our thoughts, our perspectives, to offer criticism of the world around us, to also offer gratitude for the world around us. And I think we all are looking for ways to express ourselves, and particularly in our work, you know, because our work is something that consumes such an enormous portion of our lives, you know. So it feels like that's a really good place to know how to express yourself. You know, that could be in the way that you treat your colleagues, or the clothes that you wear, or the amount of preparation you put in, or the outlook that you carry throughout the day. And so we're all doing that. And with artistic forms of expression, I really think many people have their way. You know, my little sister, for example, she doesn't want to sit down and write poems, but she's a dancer. Like, I'm convinced, because whenever I play music, she starts to move and she starts to express herself through movement and through her body and moving to the music. And I think, you know, some people like to paint, some people play a musical instrument, some people write essays, some people give speeches, you know, some people
That's true.
some people teach, some people cook, some people do all these things, and all we're doing is we're expressing ourselves. And for me, it's through rhyming words, but I wouldn't say I woke up one morning and sat upright and thought, I'm going to be a poet. You know, these things evolve over huge amounts of time. There was a lot of time that I was very interested in stand-up comedians, and I would watch as many stand-up comedians as I could. Well, the thing that interests me about stand-up comedians is their honesty. I think that in a world where it's becoming more and more difficult to express yourself freely, and I think that free speech is one of the most precious things in the world. And actually, what you'll find is in a lot of areas of the world, I believe we censor ourselves very, very deeply, and we censor the things we say.
It's true.
And stand-up comedians don't do this, you know. They speak on the edges, in the territories that are more dangerous, and that's why we laugh, you know. If they're good,
Right.
they're good. So I was very interested in this for a while. Then I felt very interested in watching rap battles on YouTube, because suddenly I found that there was this phenomenon where people who had, you know, disagreements, who didn't like each other, instead of physically fighting, which you know, I tend not to do personally. I don't engage in many physical fights, but people were resolving differences with words, using humor and using aggression and using all these various emotions and tactics, but they were doing this only through words. And I was really, really interested in that, and so I became interested in that for a while, and then I started to find some musicians and poets and people who give speeches and storytellers, and your interests will tell you what it is that is your way of expressing yourself, because
what you connect with.
Yeah, you can't help but be fascinated, and over a long period of time, I've begun. And I think that this is a process that will actually last. If we were to speak again in 30 years, maybe I wouldn't be making 3-minute videos on social media, of reading bedtime stories to my little brother and sister. Maybe I'd be doing something completely different. But I think over time, you evolve and refine and adapt, and you learn about how you can best express yourself to others and your ideas. And so in this moment, what you are seeing with A Tale of Two Mindsets and Great Realization, this is the best I've come up with so far. So we'll see.
Nice. So it's been a long time that we've had poets. It's been really a long time, because the only reference that I find for poets is like in the 18th and 19th century. Our kids are probably still learning, the same poems that have been scripted years back. And in today's time, I think you've brought about a revival of poetry, honestly, which our kids probably would be able to relate to, which we can also relate to. Because it's becoming so fast-paced, to sit and write poetry. I guess you need a high emotional quotient, which is actually depleting, though IQ is increasing. But writing poems requires a lot of sensitivity. It requires a connect with your own self and sensitivity to what's happening around. And to pen down those words, with meaningful phrases. Choosing meaningful words and to convey the right, the self-expression, as you said. So, do you think like today's kids need to be more calmer? How would you inspire them?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't necessarily.
They need to strike a balance between, the IQ and the EQ, because it's more becoming like of the moment, it's more worldly. It's not really connecting with your own self.
Well, I'm nervous to blame children from moving away from these art forms, because I think that children arrive. I've got two that live here that I see every day. They don't know anything, right? They're so malleable, and they will kind of they will manifest themselves. They will become
what we expose them to.
A reflection of the world that they're exposed to, and we've got pretty busy, and every email must be responded to that day, and that every every meeting must have every member of staff, and every every film you can imagine is now available on a screen that everyone must carry in their pocket, and everyone must be able to be reached at any moment. Like I have great chats with a friend of mine who doesn't have a mobile phone, and he's my age, and this is fascinating. Well, even you say wow there. This is fascinating to people, because we think, you don't have a mobile phone? Well, how can you operate in today's world? And he says, oh, with such pleasure. He says
that's interesting.
He says, if anyone wants to get hold of me, they will they will do so in a way that's on my terms. And when I want to be available for people, that's when I'll be available for people. And this I'm not necessarily saying that this is something that I think is achievable for, not even for myself.
It's a choice that you have.
Yeah, but it's an incredibly it's incredibly hard to swim against the stream.
Tide.
So I guess the point that I'm making is we're building a world with such immediacy, and then we're disappointed when our children don't stop to slow down and think about things and put them into words and express themselves. And I think it's I'm not speaking about I'm speaking very broadly and generally, but I think it's such a hypocrisy, because the children, I think, are just running as fast as they can to keep up with the adults in the world around them, with expectations, with everything, and then
with our expectations,
and then we shouldn't be surprised that they don't write.
They're adapting. In fact, they're adapting to exactly what the world is asking from them. They're actually not living their natural selves, because we are not allowing them to, probably.
What coronavirus did was, it for 4 months, 5 months, it may continue longer. For at least the first 3 months, actually, when really we didn't know what was happening. For those of us whose situation wasn't one of immediate danger, and I'm talking for those of us who didn't have to very immediately worry about how to put food on the table, those of us who weren't in that situation, I think, had 3 months that they haven't had in decades, where we were able to just think for a moment and realize that we oh my goodness, this hamster wheel that I've been running in for an incredibly long time has just broken off for a moment. And I can just look around, and that's the best way to describe how I felt in that moment. I felt, wow, I've been running as fast as I can for as long as I can to try and be successful, or pay my rent, or get a house, or get a job that brings me the approval of my family, all of these things and so many other things. And for a moment, everything stopped. And so I think that was
just a pause.
And so I think that was a precious moment. It was an incredibly difficult moment, and I don't want to undo how difficult it was, and still is, and will be for many, many people. But I think there are two sides to every coin.
Yes, I think for us too. I mean, I would call this a golden period, because we've done all the things that we always wished to do, but we never had the time for it. And we always wished, when we read this book, or we would play with our children, or learn some art, things like that. And it's surprising how children have not fallen sick, because they're more connected to everybody around them, to their families, to the first families that matter most to them. So much of, so many issues like psychological issues, which children would face day in and out, not having their parents around, has drastically reduced. And I think, for some of us, it's thanks to coronavirus, which actually made this possible, which would never have given us a pause in our lives otherwise.
Yeah, and isn't well, I suppose that's responsible. What you've just put into words there is the reason I chose to write this line, where the little boy asks his big brother, why did it take a virus to bring people back together? And because that's such a good question, that's a question that cuts right to the core of the issue. It's like, why must it be something imposed, so dramatic?
God just imposed it on us, because we wouldn't do it otherwise. So,
And that's why the big brother can only reply, because sometimes you've got to get sick before you start feeling better. It's like there is no good reason. It's like that this appears to be the way of nature. You know, there are periods of war and there are periods of peace. You know, there are periods of sickness and there are periods of health, and they exist. They exist, and so you know, the world will just continue on.
You need to complete the circle. You need to somewhere go through each and every phase of life to to actually make it more meaningful. And so, who's your inspiration? I mean, you've written such beautiful verses. I mean, each poem of yours has such a great meaning to it. So, do you look up to any poets, writers? Do you follow?
I look up to so many. I look up to so many people. So many people actually. Not only poets. You know, so many people in different ways. I'm very interested in people who are leaders, effective leaders, people who are good, people who are able to command the attention of others with their words, and not through force. I think that if you're able to command the attention of others without the use of tyrannical force, then I'm very interested in how you're doing that. For example, in the strangest of places, I follow football in the United Kingdom, and the manager of my football club, his name is Jurgen Klopp, and in the first press conference he had when he joined the team, he was asked, this team hasn't won the English League in 30 years. Are you going to be the person to do it? Are you the special one? And he laughed and he said, I'm not the special one. I'm the normal one. Let's get to work. And I think whenever someone has the opportunity to display, ego, and they choose to display humility, I look up to those people. I just read a book. I read a book called Endurance, which is the story of this sea captain. It's a true story of this sea captain and his men, and their ship was trapped between ice floes next to Antarctica in 1914, and they should have all died, but due to the decisions of this person and the leadership, they survived this situation. And filmmakers and musicians and poets, and basically what I'm saying is that
you can find inspiration from,
you can find it anywhere,
every corner of the world, anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't just have to be people doing the same thing as you.